कहानी
मीनाक्षी लिखी जुबानी।
Hello friends, Namaskar. Today I bring to you a story from the hills of Northeast. This story is of a tribal girl named Rani Gaidinliyu of Rongmai tribe. In 1915, when India was reeling under the British rule and Indians all across the country were fighting for their independence, Gaidinliyu took birth on 26 January 1915 in a tribal family of a small village named Nungkao, which is in the present-day Tamenglong district of Manipur. Since her childhood, she had witnessed savage British atrocities on common man of the hills, and that made her determined to put in all her endeavors to preserve the indigenous cultural identity, faith and beliefs of their community. She, at a very tender age, was witness to brutal British oppressions on tribal families of her neighborhood. The enslaving of the tribal families and compelling them to work for years after years without an ounce of mercy had left a deep impression on her young mind. In the Northeast, the British had put their best foot forward, or should I say, the worst oppressing foot forward, to ensure that the innocent tribals were forced to extreme labor work. The torture did not just end there. The tribal families were also imposed with unimaginable taxes. All this further motivated her to fight the British. Gaidinliyu also observed the rise in the infiltration as they were converting the Nagas. This made her more determined to fight against the British to save her culture and her people from such hypocrisy that would have led to wiping out of their indigenous culture. In the late 1800s, British were ruthlessly conquering all parts of India, and they soon conquered the Rongmai's territory also. By the year 1891, the British began imposing house taxes on all Indians, which made them helpless as they all were dependent on their land. However, they had no choice but to comply. At the young age of 13, in the year 1927, Gaidinliyu became associated with the freedom fighter and rebellious leader Haipu Jadong, and she became his first lieutenant in his social, religious and political movement to fight against the British atrocities. They started a serious social, religious, political revolt against them, and the mutiny was named as Hiraka movement, that envisioned independence from the British and reinstating the indigenous Naga culture. The movement focused on reviving a tribal religion, promotion of self-realization of their people. Rani Gaidinliyu, association with Jadong, prepared her to fight the British. They were determined to establish the self-rule of the Nagas and end imperialism in the Northeast. Sadly, in the year 1931, Jadong was arrested by the British, and soon thereafter followed a series of vicious mock trials. With his arrest, the movement had come to a halt and left a vacuum. The movement needed a leader, and this is when Rani Gaidinliyu stepped up. Later that year, Jadong was executed for opposing the colonial rule. Gaidinliyu was shattered with her cousin's death, but she did not let the movement die down and instead took the mantle from him. After his execution, when she took the leadership of the movement, there came a paradigm shift. She slowly turned it into from being a religious movement to a political one. Gaidinliyu was just 16 then. She led a series of protests against the British as she went around villages educating people and telling them not to pay taxes to the British. She linked her spiritual role as a leader of a social religious movement into a pure nationalist role and inspired many people to rebel against the British for a free India. She began her own version of non-cooperation movement with the tribe and receiving donations for continuing her battle for a free India, where many joined her. This made it unbearable for the British administration to function in the whole region. She passed on instructions to every household to stop paying taxes to the British. Many rebels proclaimed her and Jadong to be their inspiration. In refusing to pay taxes to the British, this seriously angered the British officials, and they began to actively look for her. Very soon, she was accused of creating communal unrest against cookies. and under this pretense, the British got the chance to arrest her. The British were extremely cunning and determined to catch Gaidinliyu at any cost. This led to launch of a manhunt against her, but she had informers hovering around the region and that helped her. To evade many arrests by the police, she kept moving across the villages. The governor of Assam dispatched the 3rd and the 4th Battalion of the Assam Rifles against her. Under the supervision of the Deputy Commissioner of the Naga Hills, she evaded the police and travelled through villages across the northeast from Nagaland to Assam and to Manipur, hopping from one village to another. While she was on the run and hiding from the British entrapments, monetary rewards were announced for any information that would lead to her arrest. Later, it was also declared that anybody who can help with any sort of information of her whereabouts would even be rewarded with a tax exemption for 10 years. In October 1932, the brave daughter of the hills moved to Pulomi village. Her followers started to build a wooden fortress, but one fine day, while the fortress was getting built, an Assam Rifles contingent headed by Captain MacDonald launched a surprise attack on the village. It was 17th of October 1932 when Gaidinliyu and her disciples were arrested without any resistance near Kinoma village. She was arrested on false accusation of attacking the Hangram post of the Assam Rifles. Later, she was taken to Imphal. There she was convicted on charges of murder. After 10 months of trial, she was sentenced to life imprisonment by political agents court for abetment of murder. From 1933 to 1947, she served her time at Guwahati, Shillong, Aizawl and Tura jails. The British did not stop there too. Most of her associates were either executed or were imprisoned. In the year 1934, Gaidinliyu established an organization dedicated to the tribals and named it as Kahani Samiti. But slowly the movement declined after the arrest of Dikyu and Ramjo, who were her last followers. After the interim government of India was set up in 1946, she was released from Tura jail. In 1991, Gaidinliyu returned to her birthplace, Luang Kau. 2 years later, on 17th of February 1993, at the age of 78, she passed away. She was bestowed with several honors like Padma Bhushan in 1982, Seva Samman in 1983, Sri Shakti Puraskar in 1991 to honor her. She was posthumously awarded the Bhagwan Birsa Munda Puraskar in 1996. The Government of India also issued a commemorative stamp in her honor. In 2015, on her birth anniversary under Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, commemorative coin and stamp were issued in her honor. In 2021, Honorable Union Home Minister Amit Shah ji laid the foundation stone for Rani Gaidinliyu Museum in Manipur's Tamenglong district. Her remarkable contribution towards India and its freedom helped in keeping the unity and integrity of the nation intact. Her story is a prime example of how India's history is built by ordinary people, people whose lives and histories have largely been forgotten and hidden. Let us celebrate their contribution and their lives in this Amrit Kal as we move to build a new India that is proud of its cultural heritage and legacy. 64 days to go. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.